Hey, what's up, y'all? Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite shows, Mob Psycho 100. It's an amazing anime. It's anime by Studio Bones, who's done great series like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and My Hero Academia. It was written by the One Punch Man author One. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this anime. There's multiple things I'd love to discuss and analyze about it, and I will in the future. But today I'd like to talk about my favorite thing about the show, the relationship between Reigen and Mob. Before I get into the point of this video though, I'd like to break down why I love Mob Psycho so much a little bit more. What I love so much about it is I feel like it implements the best part of multiple genres of shows. One episode might be a top tier battle anime, the next you might feel like you're watching a really good slice of life. And while the character Mob resembles that near unstoppable good guy anime protagonist that we've seen before, he's much more relatable since his goals are more grounded in reality. To get to know a girl he likes, he wants to be more confident, he wants nothing but the best for his brother and everyone around him. So while his personality can be compared to others in Battle Shonen, it's much easier for me to relate and enjoy his character since he yearns for things that I've wanted at some point in my life. Now that I've talked about Mob, I want to get into the topic of this video today, which is going to be the relationship between him and Reigen. Reigen is my favorite character in the series, and his relationship with Mob is my favorite part of it, so I would like to discuss that in detail today. We're introduced to Reigen at the beginning of episode 1 as the owner of a sort of exorcism business. Already we're hinted at the fact that he's a con man due to his personality and the boyfriend of the first client being extremely suspicious of his legitimacy. What keeps Reigen's business going and successful at times is him having Mob, an esper who is powerful enough to perform the jobs that Reigen agrees to. So right off the bat, we're introduced to this con man that uses someone's real ability to make money, passing off an idea that he's really the master of it all and Mob is just his student. For a lot of the show, it appears that Mob is oblivious to the fact that Reigen is lying about his powers. Reigen constantly makes up reasons for why each thing they encounter isn't worthy of him using his esper abilities, so he lets Mob handle it. Mob seems to eat this up and keeps doing Reigen's work. At the surface level, this seems like a very deceitful and parasitic relationship. What's so beautiful though about the writing in Mob Psycho is it can make us feel so differently about something that seems one way on the surface. As the show progresses, we see that Mob is a kid with a great heart, who, like I stated before, wants things that most boys want growing up. Throughout the show, he slowly builds up that confidence and becomes more outgoing. People around him help him improve in that aspect, like the Body Improvement Club, but no one helps him more than the man that is using him, Reigen. It's actually shown pretty early that Reigen cares about Mob and isn't just using him. One of the first displays of this is when Mob calls Reigen about the Telepathy Club. Instead of demanding that the submissive Mob drops the idea of it and rushes over to his business to do more of his work, he asks Mob if he actually wants to join it. This is followed up in episode 3 by Reigen talking to Mob about reading minds and assuming that Mob is trying to read a girl's mind. Then at the end of the episode, when Mob feels that he ruined a good time for the people being controlled by Dimple, Reigen explains to Mob that he actually saved them, making him feel much better about the situation. So while Reigen is a con man and using Mob in a literal sense, he's also not being too demanding, which leads to Mob joining the Body Improvement Club, and he talks to Mob about his life and what's going on. If he sees Mob feeling down, he cares enough to explain the bright side of a situation to him. He's really giving attention and reassurance to a boy that is in desperate need of it. A big example of Reigen actually being a good guy is during the end of season 1 when Mob, Tsurugi, and Dimple go to save Ritsu from Claw. When Reigen shows up and him, Ritsu, and Tsurugi end up being in danger, Mob's rage builds up to the point that he's prepared to murder their foes. This is when Reigen slaps Mob out of it and tells him that it's not worth it, that he'll suffer in the end, that it's okay to run away. At a surface level, you'd assume a con man like Reigen would be okay with the death of people threatening him. But instead, he shows that he has morals, and he pushes them onto the young and powerful, but easily influenced boy. We then get a flashback of Mob meeting Reigen for the first time. Mob is much younger in this flashback, and he visits Reigen because he hears about Reigen's line of work, and feels that this is someone he could talk to about being an esper. it's something that Mob has wanted to talk about, he just feels no one can relate. Instead of just getting to the point and using Mob for his own gain, it's shown that he tells Mob that being an Esper is just another characteristic. It doesn't make him a freak, and that he should focus on living positively and being a good person. Now imagine if someone like Mob had acquired a different role model. Due to him being submissive and easily influenced, we could be looking at his powers being used for evil. Instead, Reigen saved him and sent him down the path of good. Even before Reigen proposes using Mob for his work, Mob asks if he can keep coming and visiting Reigen. So now we realize that while Reigen uses Mob, this young boy who needs someone to confide in and guide him uses Reigen as well. A relationship that seems parasitic at the surface is actually a healthy give and take. To further drive home the true good nature of Reigen, when he stops Mob from killing and momentarily acquires Mob's godly powers in the season finale, he uses them to tell the Claw members that having powers doesn't make you better than anyone. He attempts to snap them out of it and get rid of their delusions. The moment that this con man actually gains the godly power that he was making up all this time, he uses it for good. The culmination of this relationship between Mob and Reigen takes place in episode 7 of season 2. When I look back fondly on this show and proclaim that it's in my top 5 or top 3 anime, hell, sometimes even my number 1, depending on the day and how I'm feeling, this episode is at the forefront. The premise of the episode is that the community makes the same realization that we made in episode 1, that Reigen is a fraud. They realize that he has no Esper powers at all. When this happens, they make fun of him and bash him, which is what you would generally do to an exposed con man like Reigen. When Reigen holds a press conference and is getting bashed for being a phony, we get a flashback that reveals that Reigen was leading a regular life that he despised, and when he took a risk by quitting his job and renting out his current office, he was about to give up on this new dream until Mob rang his doorbell. Mob saved him the same way that Reigen saved him. In this moment, Reigen starts contemplating that maybe he has been a parasite to Mob, that maybe he's held him back. As everything is about to come crashing down on him, his career is over and he's questioning if he's been bad for Mob. Mob bails him out and creates enough Esper activity in the room to make Reigen seem legitimate. When this happens and when they talk on the bridge after, which is my favorite moment in the whole series, the show reveals that Mob has always known Reigen was a con man, but he also knows what us, the audience, know to be true. Reigen is a good guy. He's a guy worth standing by despite his flaws and his lies, and he's incredibly vital to the growth and good nature of Mob. A lot of shows tend to leave things unsaid or unrealized in relationships, leaving us frustrated as an audience. In this moment though, Mob Psycho gave us exactly what we wanted. Who cares what people think about Reigen? We know that deep down he's a great guy and a great influence on Mob, and Mob knows that too. To me, that's all that matters. This has been my analysis of the relationship between Reigen and Mob. I appreciate y'all watching.
I've known that my master is genuinely a good guy.